Today I'm at a Costco in Northern California. It's wine shopping day. I'm searching out the best values on the most interesting wines. Hi, I'm Bob Paulinski, Master of Wine. The back part of this video will include a tasting of each of the wines that I've just picked up. If you've been to a Costco, you know it's a busy place, and they sell a lot of wine. The mix will include wines that are broadly found most times of the year. Others are more limited, along with a range of wines under Costco's own Kirkland label. The mix will vary by location, but you're always bound to find some pleasant surprises. The price points are widespread, under $10 to 100 plus, with the vast majority being in that 15 to 35 range. My intent was to search out the best values from classic regions that also have a good level of availability. I went with six wines that most caught my attention. They happen to be from six different countries with price points ranging from $8 to $50. Before I get into the specific wines, here's a bit on making sense of the price signage at a Costco. This applies to wine and anything else in the club. Some tags will show an additional supplier-funded discount. Be sure to note the promo expiration date. Some signs show a cost that ends in a 7. This notes a reduced price. Signs with an asterisk in the upper right-hand corner are items that are currently not being replenished, although it may return at a later date. It's time for the tasting. First up is the 2021 Dr. Luzin Blue Slate Riesling Cabernet from the Mosel in Germany. This is the only white wine in today's tasting, and the reason that I picked up this specific bottle, I'm a big fan of this producer, Dr. Luzin. Some of the best Mosel wines that I've ever had are from this source. Now, there's also projects outside of Germany as well. This specific bottle, the Blue Slate, I've not had, so this is going to be a first. I love the fact that it comes with a screw cap. Wines like this should always come this way. It helps to preserve the freshness and vibrancy of the wine. First up on the appearance, the wine is extremely pale, which is expected for this sort of wine. There's also a minute amount of CO2, which is very typical for wines that are very fresh like this style. Aromatics, really nice. It has that stone fruit, that green apple characteristic, a little bit floral, but there's good intensity. It's bright, it's fresh. There's a zesty purity in terms of the way the wine smells. It's off to a good start. On the palate, quite light bodied. I see by the back label, the alcohol on this is only 7.5%. Now, in terms of Cabernet, this I would say nudges a little bit more to the sweeter style of what Cabernet typically is. So there definitely is some hint of sweetness in this wine, but the acidity is the counter to that. It keeps it bright and fresh and clean on the palate. You can feel that acidity on the sides of the tongue, and as you swallow the wine, back palate, there's this zesty, vibrant, fresh character that just follows through. The wine actually has good length. This is really a very well-made Riesling, and considering the source, I'm not surprised at all. Riesling Cabernets were something that I drank a lot of when I first got into wine some years ago. Don't drink them very much anymore. But I have to say that this is really very enjoyable. It kind of takes me back a few decades. But the wine is bright, it's clean, it's fresh, it's zesty. All of those things come together. I mean, this is something that definitely would have a broad appeal to it. And, I think maybe next year, if I saw this wine again, I'd probably pick up another bottle. It's really sound. It's a great source. The price on this is extremely reasonable. So if you like something that has that brightness, freshness, clean, forward character to it, this is definitely worth a shot. Next up is the 2021 Chateau de Grezels Cahors from the southwest of France. So when I saw this wine, I did a double take. The price seems absolutely insane. A Cahors for $8. Now this is the least expensive wine in today's tasting, so I'm curious to see how this stacks up. I've had all sorts of fantastic experience with Cahors, and I have high expectations, even though this one is cheap. So let's see what we've got going here. This is 70% Malbec, 30% Merlot. The color is actually quite promising. It's quite deep. It has this vibrant purple color to it, a youthful appearance. The wine is not very old. It's a 2021 vintage. There's good intensity on the aromatics. This is really a great start. There's some black fruit. It has a little bit of a dark cherry character to it. And there's something here that is a bit like star anise. There's a little bit of that spicy, almost a clove-like character. But I love the way this smells. Over the years, wines from this region have been known as the black wine. The wines have been very dense, kind of unyielding, especially when they're young. That style has changed quite a bit over the years. The wines are still quite robust and they're built, but generally they're more accessible at an earlier age. And based on the appearance and the aromatics, I think that's probably what we're in for here. Yep, good weight to the wine. There is that black fruit and there's a bit of a spiciness that carries through as well. Good structure. I mean, everything is in balance. There doesn't appear to be a whole lot of oak influence in this wine. And certainly the wine is showing a lot of youthful characters. It'll benefit from some aeration, but there's some structure here. And on the back palate, there's some tannins, a little bit of dusty tannins, but very well built wine. The price is insane. And finding a Cahors for $8 is just, it's unheard of. Now, the label calls this a prestige bottling. I have no clue what that means. It's probably just some window dressing term, but here's a wine that is really drinking quite well now. I think it's going to benefit from a little bit of aeration. But if you were to keep this wine 2 or 3 years, it would hold together, and I think it actually might up its game a bit. This is the type of wine that I could drink often. My suggestion is if you like this style of wine, I would get out to Costco immediately. I'd pick up a case of this, sock it away for a year or two, pull it out every now and then, and it's going to bring you a lot of pleasure. It's good stuff. Definitely highly recommend this one. Next up is the 2019 Condado de Haza Crianza Ribera del Duero from Spain. So this next wine up really grabbed my attention as well. I'm a big fan of Ribera del Duero. Over the last few years, I seem to be drinking more and more of these wines, and I'm really happy with what I'm seeing. This particular wine I have not had before, but it is from a very good, reliable source. It's the Crianza, so this one does have some oak aging to it. The back label indicates this wine is 100% Tempranillo. Some of the wines will be blends, but in the case of this one, it's not. So let's see what we have here. Now this one does have a couple of years bottle age to it, and you can see that in the color, I think. There's a bit of a fade there. As I look down into the core, the deepest part of the glass, it's not opaque, but there's some good extraction. But, you know, it does show that there's a little bit of fade, which is very typical with Tempranillo. That fade will start to increase as the wine ages. Wow. Wonderful aromatics. It has that blackberry, red fruit, like a dark cherry characteristic. Smells a little bit like cocoa powder. Very cool, interesting aromatics. Good intensity as well. I see in the back label, 14.5 alcohol. This is really quite typical of wines from this specific region, but this feels like it has the structure to support that sort of alcohol. There's no alcoholic burn in terms of the aromatics. Really nice on the palate. Round, weighty, it's got some heft to it. Good presence that carries right through to the back palate. It finishes dry. The tannins are certainly evident, which leads me to believe that this wine could age some years. But the tannins are very, very soft. And the wood component in this wine is very well integrated. So there is a little bit of this smoky characteristic that just brings a whole different level of complexity. This is another one that I believe will benefit from some aeration. I'm going to give this a try in a couple of hours, and I think this wine will really develop and show much more. But it's drinking very well at the present time. No doubt this wine could age 3 to 5 years, I would say, with no trouble whatsoever. I'm going back. I'm going to pick up a few more bottles of this. I think this wine is worthwhile, and I'm curious to see how this develops over the next few years. Now for the 2018 Kirkland Brunello di Montalcino from Italy. Over the years, I've drank a good number of the Kirkland wines, and generally I'm quite satisfied with what I'm trying. This is the first time trying the Brunello. So I've heard so many wonderful things about this. I'm curious. This is a 2018 vintage, and something noteworthy about the 2018s. Many of the vintages in recent years have been quite warm, and oftentimes you get very jammy, ripe fruit, elevated alcohol levels. That is not the case with the 2018. So I'm expecting something that's more old school, more of a classic in terms of a Brunello style. In terms of appearance, this is really spot on for Brunello at this age, and especially one from a vintage like 2018. Well, I should mention as well, $20 is what this wine is selling for. Not often you find $20 Brunello, and in some cases, I think I'd be quite suspect about what's going to be in the bottle. Because this is Kirkland, they've got a solid reputation. There's some expectation here, so I'm hoping this wine over delivers. Aromatics have a sour cherry characteristic to it, a bit of a red fruit note, some strawberry as well, and there is a quite distinctive dried herb character. It smells a bit like dried sage. There's good presence on the palate, some solid weight here. This is not one of the bigger, more intensely built Brunellos that I've had. This is more of a classic style, a little bit more restrained. This wine has a good build to it. Everything is in balance. My feeling is this wine would have some decent aging potential. I could see keeping this 4 or 5 years, maybe even a bit longer. But the tannins here are evident. They're well integrated. They're relatively soft. The finish is dry. But there's plenty of weight here, plenty of complexity. I think this will show a bit more with some air. But all things considered, a Brunello of this quality for $20, this is extremely tough to come by. I would say actually the chance of it happening are really slim to none. So if you're a fan of Brunello, I would go out and pick this up soon. I don't know how much of this is around. I did a little bit of research, and it looks like there's a good supply of it right now, but I would expect this to sell out quick because anyone who is in the know about Brunello, I think, would take a flyer and take a shot at this. And look, the wine is really nice, and if you're a fan of this type of wine, I would get out there and pick it up as soon as you can. Next is the 2021 Austin Hope Cabernet Sauvignon from Paso Robles, California. The next one up is one of my favorites from Paso Robles. Nice people, like the wines a lot. This is actually a wine that I've had before, and this is the most expensive wine in today's tasting. This is the one that is just under $50 a bottle. Paso Robles is an interesting place. I've spent a good amount of time there, and it's really making a strong name for itself. And I think in the not too distant future, it's going to become even much more better known and more highly acclaimed than it is today. In terms of the wine styles from Paso, they're big styles. They're well extracted. This one is very deep in color, and that color does extend to the rim. Looking down at the core, it is opaque. So this is a big boy. This is not for the timid. Yeah, big intense aromatics, smoky, spicy, black fruit character. A lot of these dark, almost brooding sort of characteristics in this wine. Very, very expressive. I mean, there's a lot of character here. This is not a style of wine that I drink often, but what I like about this is they really put this together in a way where the wine is very complete. It's not a heavy-handed, not a cumbersome sort of wine. Yeah, it's ripe, it's jammy, it's full. There's some good range to it. The tannins are there, but they're very soft. The wood is definitely evident. You do get that smoky charred characteristic, but it's high quality wood and it's seamlessly integrated into the wine. Very complete. This is a modern style of winemaking, very different than the previous wine that I had with the Brunello. So stylistically, if you like these big, dense, very full style wines where everything is in balance, the pieces are put together in a very skilled way, this is absolutely a wonderful bottle of wine. Now, being from Paso, $50 may sound quite pricey. This wine can stack up to wines from other parts of California that are much more expensive. As I've mentioned, I've had this a few times. I'm thrilled with this wine. It's a style that I think drinks very well in its youth. It also has some very good aging potential. I would say 3 to 5 years, no problem. Next is the Kirkland 10-year-old Tawny Port. This last wine is one that I reviewed about a year ago. It's another Kirkland offering, and it's closed with something called a tea cork, which is very traditional for tawny style ports. It makes the wine very easy to reseal. Now, tawny port is barrel aged port. It's not bottle aged. So it spends a considerable amount of time in wood, and what that provides is a couple of significant changes to the wine. It'll change the wine's color, and that's where the tawny piece comes into play. So the color will fade as the wine ages, and the other thing that it'll provide is it'll soften the wine. It'll make it more rounder, more accessible. Now, this is a 10-year tawny. There are other options that are 20, 30, 40. There's also single vintage tawny ports as well. A 10-year tawny under $20 a bottle is extremely rare. Now, the aromatics on this, it really jumps out of the glass. Keep in mind, this is fortified. The alcohol level will be about 20%, but there's this red fruit character. There's a bit of like a sandalwood note to it as well. But very good intensity in terms of aromatics. On the palate, very weighty, round, rich, certainly sweetness there. It has this creme brulee caramel characteristic to it, a roasted nut character as well. Really a beautiful wine. Tawny port is something I don't drink often. I like tawnies. I do like vintage port as well. But finding a tawny port from a good source that is under $20 a bottle, it's just a screaming crazy value. Love this wine, and it's one of these things that I'll have a couple of times a year. Really enjoy it very much. So if you're a fan of tawny ports, you've got access to it, pick this up. This is a winner. I hope this video provides some help on your next shopping trip to Costco. If you have any comments on wines that you've purchased there, please post it down below. And if you happen to pick up any of the wines that I've suggested in this video, I'd love to hear from you as well. I always ask for this, but if you haven't subscribed, please do it now. Also hit the like button and be sure to hit the notification bell. That way you'll be kept up to speed on all things happening with this channel. Looks like I'm going to be drinking some wines from Costco tonight. I hope you're drinking well, and I'll see you again before too long. Cheers.